Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
You ever wonder what people who've actually met Donald Trump, especially powerful, successful people in American business and beyond, who've had to try and interact with him because he's the leader of the free world, say about those encounters behind closed doors? All In has obtained some never-before-seen footage that gives you a good idea of what one of the wealthiest men in the world, Bill Gates, thinks of the president. Bill Gates took questions during a recent Gates Foundation meeting with staff, and he talked about meeting Donald Trump. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, so I never met Donald Trump before he was elected. There was a thing during the election where he and I were at the same place, and I avoided him. But anyway, then he got elected, and so I went to see him in December. He knew my daughter Jennifer because Trump has this horse show thing down in Florida. In fact, he went up and talked to Jen and was being super nice. And then like 20 minutes later, he flew in a helicopter to the same place. So clearly he had been driven away, but he wanted to make a grand entrance in a helicopter. Anyway, so when I first talked to him, it was actually kind of scary how much he knew about my daughter's appearance. But Melinda didn't like that too well. Anyway, so I saw him at Trump Tower. I said, hey, science and innovation is a great thing. You should be a leader who drives innovation. And that conversation was about a broad set of things in energy, in education. Pick things you want to do that are big. HIV vaccine, you could, accelerate that. Be associated with innovation. And then the second time I saw him was the March after that, so March 2017 in the White House. In both of those two meetings, he asked me if vaccines weren't a bad thing, because he was considering a commission to look into ill effects of vaccines. And somebody, his name is Robert Kennedy Jr., was advising him that vaccines were causing bad things. And I said, no, that's a dead end. That would be a bad thing. Don't do that. Both times he wanted to know if there was a difference between HIV and HPV. So I was able to explain that those are rarely confused with each other.
Oh, but wait, there's more, including how President Trump talks about himself next.
When I walked in, his first sentence kind of threw me off. He said, Trump hears that you don't like what Trump is doing. And I thought, wow, that you're Trump.
It is Friday, the 18th of May of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Well. Trump is getting pretty mad. I guess the proverbial S is going to hit the fan, it being the weekend. The only problem with that is that as the Mueller investigation ratchets up, the possibility of a nuclear attack somewhere, meaning that we attack someone with nukes, increases. That's the scary part about it. Well, looks like Trump's going to dampen our chances for a trade deal with China. Wow, we're going to talk a little bit about trade with China in a bit here later on in the show. Looks like maybe, I guess, Prince Charles will walk Meghan Markle down the aisle. Meghan Markle's father has heart surgery scheduled. I don't know if it's one of those convenient heart surgeries, but we'll see. America just is so enthralled with royal weddings. It's almost as if we never had a revolution against the king. But that's how it is. Missouri, it looks like those legislatures are going to still weigh the impeachment scandal, or impeachment, of scandal-plagued Eric Greitens. Yeah, the former Navy SEAL who thought it was going to be 50 Shades of Eric. What a weirdo. I don't know. I mean, the pictures are there. And he did say he was going to use them to keep the lady in line. And the lady wasn't his wife, just so you know. Oh, that racist lawyer in New York who went off on the Hispanic. Oh, the Hispanic. I hate it when Raw Story has their autoplay. How dare you? Went off on the Hispanic workers at the deli sandwich shop there in New York for speaking Spanish. Boy, in New York, there are idiots everywhere you go, and there's obviously a lot of idiots in New York. I mean, it's New York. Okay, come on. But there are some who have come to his defense because he has been hounded mercilessly since the video of him going off went viral. And some are concerned, because he's, been locked out of his office there at the building next to the sandwich shop. He is followed by paparazzi, and that's just too much. And I cannot remember what magazine she writes for, but Julia Eihoff, who we see on cable news quite often, and I do like her, came to his defense, and I can understand, how would you like it if, someone on our side was hounded mercilessly like that? Well, first of all, our side aren't fascists, okay? We're not stormtroopers. They keep telling the world that we liberals are going to come and just take the guns away and kill people in their beds. But that's not us. We're predicated upon, really, let's be clear, we're predicated upon a love of humanity, not a fear and hate of humanity. So the idea that someone on our side would go into an establishment, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. You mean if I went into a Nazi bar, say, and went off on a bunch of Nazis, and then Nazis hounded me in the street, the Nazi press hounded me in the street, and tried to get me fired? Is that what she means? I'm trying to figure it out. But regardless, this guy gets exactly what he deserves. And one component that we forget, or not we, because we're the highly educated. I like my highly educated audience. I do. We all should. Wherever they are. One component left out in this argument of, oh, poor Schlossberg, poor guy, he's being hounded, he's going to lose his job, a career, a life that he built for himself. Well, you got to lie in the bed after a while, don't you now? Well, the argument that is not made, the component of an argument that is not made, is what about those workers that he went off on and threatened to call ICE to have them deported? What about their feelings? I mean, how would you like it if someone came into your workplace at whatever magazine you write for, and since you were born in Russia, wanted you deported because of, I don't know, the way that you rounded out your vowels? I don't know. People, look, stop giving Nazis an excuse. They're Nazis. All right? They don't get the benefit of the doubt. Oh, and let's talk about context in President Trump. And I know I said the P word and is not really allowed, as pointed out in the Netroots Radio Style Manual. And I know, because I keep writing it. It grows. The only thing that was taken out of context with Trump's animal comment is that people think it was about MS-13. That's the only out of context aspect of that statement, because his statement is a broad brush for all Hispanic immigrants, if not all immigrants en toto. And we know that. So, media, stop having auto play on Raw Story. Damn it, Alternate and Raw Story. I think that's right. Alternate bought Raw Story. So I guess I'm just going to have to take Raw Story off so I don't see the headlines because of that autoplay. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe I should end the diatribe right now and get into what we are attending to today, because, you know, it's Friday. And it could be Anything Goes Friday, but I just feel compelled to have a little bit of, a flow, you know. All right. A beginning, a middle, and an end. Well, on the rest of the menu. Oh, first of all, starting off with Bill Gates, I got to tell you, if you want more proof of how utterly evil Donald Trump is just by the fact that more people respect and admire Bill Gates today than they did at the beginning of the week. That's how evil Donald Trump is. Ooh, boy. And I got to tell you, I kind of like Bill Gates now, and I never thought I would be admitting that, at least publicly. I mean, I hope I'm not hounded in the street now. Maybe I should be. Okay, on the rest of the menu, China nearly triples purchases of Russian soybeans as U.S. farmers suffer over Trump's trade war. That's a feature, not a bug. Two Arizona men, they happen to be brothers, by the way, behind a slew of pro-GOP and anti-abortion PACs are indicted for bilking small donors out of $23 million. $23 million! God, I'm waiting for the Soros money they keep saying I'm getting. I should be proactive and an earner. I got to figure out how to grift. Or, well, grift more effectively. Obviously, we're all grifters in America now. Jeez. Yes. And, the lawyer who represented Equifax will now run the government office that investigates Equifax. That's how to deconstruct the administrative state. It's happening over and over, all over. All right. After the break, we, of course, move to the chef's table, where today we're going to read about ICE claiming a dreamer was gang-affiliated and tried to deport him, but a federal judge ruled that ICE was lying. Yeah, ICE actually altered paperwork. Well, because the guy was an animal. Let's be clear. All right. You know, let's not take it out of context. We're not talking MS-13 here. We're talking about black, brown people, whatever. Weird, dirty immigrants. And refugees. What losers? If they're running for something, they're losers. All right. And House Republicans' repeated demands for sensitive information on the origins of the Russia investigation is endangering the life of a crucial FBI informant. Gee, I'm actually old enough to remember when an actual CIA agent was outed and people in her circle died. Yeah, it's almost like the Republicans know how to do this. They've done it before. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice the chat room link at the rightish of the page. Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, monitors that throughout the day. So do engage us there. That's a fun place to be, especially with Kelly. She keeps it fun. Yeah. And if you look to the leftish from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, are the contribute donate buttons a very integral part to this whole operation, because we are unable to do this without you. They keep promising the Soros money. The interest alone would probably balance the national debt, if not the whole world's. And that's just me alone, not counting everybody else in Netroots Radio who's owed Soros money, just the interest. Okay. So thank you for your generosity in keeping Netroots Radio broadcasting resistance 24/7, 365. Okay, and do follow me on Twitter. But before you follow me on Twitter, follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. And we are also on Facebook as Netroots Radio. Yes, that's where we are if you want to. I'm still putting pictures up for family. I don't know. It's going to probably get the whole family in trouble now. You never know. Okay, and now you can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. And that's man spelled backwards. Okay, just so you know. And, oh, yes. So follow me on Twitter, of course, at Justice Putnam, and Daily Co's as Justice Putnam, where I do post the diary that has the show notes and links, and a few other tidbits of, I don't know, entertaining value that may be uplifting or just makes you think a little bit. You never know. Yeah, poetry, photography, a few other things. You'll see. Okay, one of the problems about Raw Story having this autoplay on their front page is that it kind of disrupted my train of thought, and I meant to mention that apparently Michael Cohen's banking records are not missing, and they're not being held by Mueller. They're actually being restricted from Mueller. Apparently some senior official, I'm looking at you, Munchin, in the Treasury Department, has just put restrictions on who can see these documents. Very interesting, huh? Sounds Putin-esque still. I mean, it sounded Putin-esque when the idea that they would just be absolutely missing, like just ripped out of the file digitally. That sounded very Putin-esque, because that's what Putin would do. But the idea of restricting access is also very Putin-esque. So, okay. Well, I guess they didn't just teach American civics at that FSB class for assets, dupes, and idiots that they give in the Kremlin. So there. Okay, so this first article is out of Raw Story by David Edwards. And Russians are benefiting from Donald Trump's trade dispute with China, while U.S. soybean farmers are suffering from lost sales. Bloomberg reported on Thursday, that was yesterday, that China nearly tripled its purchases of Russian soybeans, setting a record. Meanwhile, China has reported that they've stopped buying U.S. soybeans after Trump announced tariffs on Chinese steel. Whatever they're buying is non-U.S. Whatever they're buying is non-U.S. Bunge Limited Chief Executive Officer Soren Schroeder told Bloomberg last month. They're buying beans in Canada and Brazil, mostly Brazil, but very deliberately not buying anything from the United States. Well, look, if you're taking advice from a foreign hostile power, do you think that if they've recommended a trade war, that America would benefit by it? Please. Next offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all night hawks in the diner of life, folks. And yes, the French 77 is the most balanced cocktail in the history of cocktails. Not an opinion, just fact. And I'm entitled to my opinion, but not my facts. And the facts are the facts. So there, French 77, look it up. Elderberry flower liqueur, okay? Not the simple syrup. That's the key. Otherwise, you just have a French 75, which is also an astounding and a lovely, lovely cocktail, okay? Makes you want to speak French. If you drink the French 77, you are French. You'll see. All right, for this next offering is by T-Bog out of Raw Story. And fortunately, in these articles, so far, there's no autoplay. On the front page of Raw Story, I'll get this autoplay thing. I got to figure out how to. I keep turning autoplays off, and Raw Story keeps doing what they do. I don't know. I was trying to figure out after reading this story about these Arizona brothers grifting off of the right wing, what we as left types could do to grift. I mean, effectively. Maybe Raw Story's figuring it out. Okay, 2 brothers were charged Thursday in a Manhattan courtroom by federal authorities of bilking donors out of more than $23 million with a collection of scam packs. God damn it. I thought about this. God, why don't we just set up a scam pack and reap the money in? But you know what? It's like lying. You have to remember every single lie. And I got a big brain on me. I mean, just ask me. But I'm smart enough to know that I can't remember every single lie. And you can't. So I always felt the better strategy was just to be honest. Just let people know what the truth is. Okay? That way you can have a big brain and you don't have to be encumbered with all this stuff that you have to remember to keep the lie going. It's just stupid. I don't know. It's inefficient. Okay, so scam packs. And they told the contributors their money would be used to fund anti-abortion, GOP candidates, and law enforcement causes. Yeah, how many police association bake sales are there, huh? Or Little League games. How many of those are they going to have? William Tierney, 46, and his younger brother, Robert, age 40, are due to be arraigned in Arizona on federal charges of wire fraud, mail fraud, and conspiracy for raising money through their political action committees from 2014 to 2018. 4 years, $23 million. And let's see, they pocketed $3.5 million to themselves, while the causes they profess to support received just a tick under $110,000. Yeah, well, high overhead. I mean, when you're in this level of a grift, there's a lot of overhead. According to the indictment, tens of thousands of donors to 9 PACs were defrauded with promises the money would be used for coast-to-coast voter education and they would invest every penny in the big races to come. And these were quotes off of their pitch. According to the indictment, virtually all of the money went to telemarketing, fundraising, and overhead through a series of shell entities owned by the two that had no employees. The overhead was so high, they only got $3.5 out of $23 million. Not minus the $108,000 that they gave to the causes to, suppress the vote. And right-wingers said, yeah, will you do that for us? Now, the brothers targeted small donors of less than $200 each, which allowed them to hide the donors' names because they don't have to be individually identified in Federal Election Commission reports. I've often wondered how come the Republicans really have to go for the big donors, the billionaires, the trillionaires. And it may be that the grifters have really been the bottom feeders and have gotten all of the, the millions of low-income contributors. Wow. Well, it's a niche, okay? It's a niche. And these brothers seem to have found a niche that has been working quite well for many, many decades. Except the only thing these guys did wrong is they got caught. All right, finishing up here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is an offering by Alan Pike out of Think Progress. Giant companies facing federal scrutiny for exposing sensitive consumer data have good reason to unclench their stress balls. That's because their own lawyer was just put in charge of the office that's investigating them. Andrew Smith will now head the Federal Trade Commission's Consumer Protection Office after a party line vote, typical on policy matters but rare on staffing questions, confirmed his appointment on Wednesday. Smith will have to recuse himself from numerous ongoing investigations that his office would normally lead, including the Commission's high-profile scrapes of data breaches at Equifax and Facebook, because of his past work on behalf of the firms. But the full list of his conflicts of interest is likely much, much longer. Smith has built his career on representing large firms and industries who hope to soften regulations that he will now be charged with enforcing. FTC officials did not respond to a request for copies of Smith's ethics paperwork that might reveal the whole picture. Donald Trump's administration has already undermined consumer protection and financial industry oversight work in a variety of other ways, putting a muzzle on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and repealing numerous curbs on abusive business practices. Oh, there's no racism. Black people aren't paying more interest. They're just not really good negotiators now, are they? You got to have good genes to be a good negotiator. Democratic Commissioners Rohit Chopra and Rebecca Kelly Slaughter issued statements opposing Smith's appointment in unusually pointed terms after Chairman Joseph Simmons pushed Smith through without even holding a meeting to discuss their concerns. Silly little liberals, we don't need you. There's a new sheriff in town. Democracy? Oversight? That gets in the way of business. It's not personal. It's just business. The many recusals at Smith's past work will force at FTC's Consumer Watchdog Office means that they're not fully able to utilize Andrew's significant experience, talents, and qualifications. Oh, my. That was Chopra who wrote that, one of the commissioners. The most notorious of Smith's former clients is Scott Tucker, the payday lending mogul who used the internet to circumvent state usury laws for years. Tucker, who was sentenced to 16 years in prison earlier this year after Obama-era officials brought a RICO case against him, famously used his ill-gotten gains to finance his dream of becoming a professional race car driver. The ostentatious nature of his criminality and the frivolous nature of his lifestyle helped make Tucker a powerful symbol of systemic inequities in the U.S. economy. Now, Tucker's lawyer is going to be in charge of protecting consumers from men like him. I think as a feature, not a bug. We're not being protected. We are the rubes. Yes, and they hate the rubes. Remember that. Okay, let's get to our break, and of course, we'll come back and go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, The Mother of All Jobs. Films about the reality of motherhood seldom get as real as the Diablo Cody penned, Jason Reitman directed Tully. Starting with a very glammed-down Charlize Theron, the movie tells the story of Marlo, a stressed-out mother of two whose life becomes even more stressful with the addition of an unplanned third child. Struggling to even make it through the day, thanks in part to sleep deprivation and the daily challenges of dealing with a son with an unnamed behavioral issue, Marlo eventually breaks down and hires a night nanny, compliments of her high-achieving brother Craig, who also has 3 children, but who also has the luxury of full-time help. The nanny, Tully, is an exuberant woman in her 20s, played by the awesome Mackenzie Davis, and who takes as much care of Marlo as she does of the new baby. Pretty soon, Marlo finds she's able to cope better with life's daily grind and even take some joy in it. Without spoilers, this setup makes the film's shocking twist even more unexpected. Still, even without the twist, Tully is an important film for showing what motherhood is like for most women, namely, a hard job and by and large a thankless one. Even those in so-called good marriages like Marlo's often find themselves alone when it comes to the actual grunt work of taking care of kids. More romantic images of motherhood are by and large left out of the reach of most women who don't have the resources of a family like Craig and his wife. Tully is arguably Diablo Cody's best work since the underrated 2011 gem Young Adult, and it shows us once again why Theron is an Oscar winner. Tully might not be a masterpiece, but it is an example of excellent filmmaking enhanced by a dynamic script. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, given on November 19, 1863, recognized the central importance of founding-era principles to the meaning and destiny of America. He noted that 87 years had passed since the birth of a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He praised the men who fought and died at the Battle of Gettysburg for the ideas that have united and sustained the American people, and he urged his fellow citizens to resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth in freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. These elegant words signify the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln to the people of America. That's all for today's podcast. 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
Does the Constitution require a unanimous verdict in a criminal case? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. The answer is yes. And no. Yes in all federal criminal prosecutions because the Sixth Amendment says so. but not necessarily in state court prosecutions, because the Supreme Court has ruled that the right to a unanimous jury verdict is not so fundamental that it is binding on the states. Most rights in the Bill of Rights are binding on the states through the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause, which says, quote, "No state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law," but not a unanimous verdict in a criminal case. That's an oddball exception. That said, almost every state, 48 to be exact, require unanimity in all criminal prosecutions. The exceptions are Louisiana and Oregon. And in Louisiana, the legislature and the voters soon will determine whether it will change its rule that 10-2 is good enough to convict a person of a felony in that state. The proposed change should pass. As the recent New York Times editorial on this topic put it, quote, "Majority rule is good when it comes to the democratic process, but it's not enough when someone's constitutional rights and liberty are at stake." The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on Thursday, May 17th, 2018. I'm Mark Boulanger. May 17th is International LGBTQI Day, a day set aside to remind people of the rights and challenges of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer or questioning, and intersex persons. To find out how the labor movement is fighting for LGBTQI people, I talked to Sandra Vermaten. Ms. Vermaten is the head of campaigns for Public Services International. PSI is the global union which represents public sector unions around the world. I asked Ms. Vermaten first why a labor organization like the PSI fights for the rights of LGBTQI people.
Well, of course, PSI defends the rights of all workers, irrespective of their cultural, racial, or sexual identity. We think that every person has a right to express themselves in the way they are. It's their human right, but it's also about, especially as public service workers, to both integrate those values in the way we provide services to people, but also inside our trade union movement. So this is really for us a very, I think would say, an intrinsic part of our work. We think that a union that defends LGBTQI workers is a progressive union, and that's the movement, as a trade union movement that we stand for.
I know it's a vast and complicated issue, but what are some of the major challenges faced by LGBTQI people in the workplace?
Well, of course, I think the first one is that still, even today, a lot of LGBTQI people hide. I mean, they stay in the closet. They hide their orientation because of fear of retribution, fear of being discriminated against. So they can never really be honest about what's really defining their life in a certain way. Then once people actually know that they have another sexual orientation, they can actually get very much discriminated against. Of course, I mean that there are many different forms of discrimination. In some extreme cases, it can lead to suicidal ideas or even to suicide, violence at work. And besides that, just a lack of recognition for the family status of people. I think that's not a healthy situation. So those are the kind of issues that we have to fight against, and that we have to make people aware about, that it's not okay that we have to provide an environment that is inclusive, that recognizes the right of everybody to happiness without any difference in terms of who it is that they share their life with.
What do trade unions do to help LGBTQI workers?
What is it that trade unions do? In the first case, of course, collective bargaining. So integrating LGBTQI workers' rights in collective bargaining. So recognition of same-sex relationships, of fighting against discrimination against those workers at the workplace, we think is very important. At the same time, also ensuring representation of these workers within our organizations, and leadership speaking out against discrimination, but also for diversity, in favor of diversity as an added value for our movement, I think is very important. I think that it's really important to note that while there has been a very positive development in the last 20 years in terms of recognition of LGBTQI rights and all same-sex relationships, also in terms of marriage rights. In the year 2000, there was not a single country in the world where such marriages were possible, but now there's, I think, almost 20. At the same time, there's 70 countries in the world where same-sex relationships are still criminal. And I think that's something that we also have to work. That's a really important campaigning issue for the global trade union movement and for anybody who has a human rights agenda.
We've been talking about the rights and challenges of LGBTQI people in general, but specifically, what has the PSI been doing to help them?
I think in the first place, we've been creating a network of both members, activists, and leaders that either identify as LGBTQI or are supporters of diversity policies within the trade union movement, just to visibilize the fact that, yes, we care about this issue.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Labor. I'm Mark Boulanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. French President Emmanuel Macron said Thursday it's up to European businesses whether or not to keep on doing business in Iran, following a threat from the U.S. that they could be targeted by new financial sanctions. Macron's remarks come a day after French energy giant Total said it would scrap $1 billion in planned investments within Iran.
We're not going to impose French businesses to stay in Iran. The French president is not the CEO of Total. I would like French businesses to have the possibility of staying, depending on the relevance of the Iran market.
But Macron did say he hoped small and medium businesses less exposed to American markets could continue trading with Iran if they wanted to. Their inevitable decisions could have significant ramifications, since Iranian officials say the country will only continue to abide by the nuclear deal so long as it receives the full economic benefits the deal was supposed to provide. And an Ebola outbreak that first emerged in early April in the jungles of the Democratic Republic of the Congo has now spread to Mbandaka, a city of roughly 1 million people. That's a worrying development given that new infections in recent weeks have been confined to rural areas with low population density. But while exposure tracking just got a whole lot more difficult, there are reasons to believe this year's Ebola outbreak can be controlled. Some 4,000 doses of an experimental Ebola vaccine created by the pharmaceutical company Merck have already been sent out to impacted areas, and all international medical personnel heading to Congo to fight the outbreak have the option of being vaccinated before arrival. An estimated 11,000 people were killed during the world's most severe Ebola outbreak, which occurred from 2014 to 2015 in West Africa. Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Hey, mark your calendars because Frances Livings, she is the one who has provided music here for West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Mark your calendars. Her next show will be coming up Sunday, June 3rd at the Urban Air Market in Los Feliz. And that's, of course, in Southern California. Or you might say Los Angeles. As we get closer to that, I'll get an actual time. And I believe that's probably brunch time. We'll see. All right. So let us now go to weather from around the world. And we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 50 degrees. We are slated to be slightly warmer than yesterday, though I think it's about the same. They're saying we'll be between 79, and I say we'll be between 79 and 81. They say we will be at 79. I say we'll be between 79 and 81. There, is that clear? Okay. Because there's always a variance when it comes to the weather. Indeed. Partly cloudy right now, and we should be partly cloudy throughout the day. Winds are currently out of the southwest about 2 miles per hour. Of course, we'll pick up a little bit later here in the morning, and they will be then moving out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight will be mostly clear with a low in the mid-50s, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Expected to be sunny tomorrow for our little gathering here at Positively 3rd and Marie for all the May birthdays in the family. Oh, my God. Yeah, lots and lots of them. I don't even want to venture a thought about how that happened. Let's see. We are expected to have quite a bit of rain towards the middle of the week. About a half an inch over the course of 3 days. Maybe more. So we'll see. But right now, dry conditions ostensibly will continue, though humidity is at 91%. Pressure is holding steady at 29.95 inches. Visibility is around 9 miles. Grass pollen is very high. Air quality is considered good at 16 parts per million. It's getting close to moderate. And the UV index remains very high at 8. So if you have those numbers in your area, take care. Please do. All right, so weather from around the world is brought to you by People's Personal Weather Stations that they purchase. These people planted these personal purchase weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 64 and fair. Paris is 66 and sunny. Rome is 73 and partly cloudy, and they are under a thunderstorm, rain, and flood watch. Kiev is 65 degrees with a light rain shower. Kabul is 55 degrees with showers in the vicinity. I think that's the water kind rather than the drone kind. Hong Kong is 80 degrees and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 73 and mostly cloudy. It looks like they have heavy rain watches as well there. Sydney, Australia is 54 and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 52 and cloudy. And they have a weather advisory, and I believe that it is rain. And New York is 62 degrees with a small craft advisory. And I apologize, it isn't rain in San Francisco. It is a small craft advisory as well for heavy winds, so take care. And if you're in New York, looks like you'll have rain tonight. And while you're out on the Hudson, trying to miss, landing jet aircraft or the ferries, ferrying people across the Hudson River, take care because it is quite windy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by People's Personal Weather Stations that they purchase. These people planted these personal purchase weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Mark Joseph Stern from Slate has penned this first offering for us here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. On Tuesday, U.S. District Judge Ricardo S. Martinez shot down the federal government's effort to strip Daniel Ramirez Medina of his DACA status. ICE had arrested and detained Ramirez last year, then falsely claimed that he was affiliated with a gang and attempted to deport him. He filed suit, alleging that ICE had violated his due process rights. Judge Martinez agreed. His order barred the federal government from voiding Ramirez's DACA status, safeguarding his ability to live and work in the U.S. legally for the foreseeable future. What may be lost, and what may be most remarkable about Martinez's decision, though, is its blunt repudiation of ICE's main claim that Ramirez is gang-related. You know, like an animal. The judge did not simply rule against ICE. He accused the agency of lying to a court of law. Now, I think the professional term in the industry is called perjury. But there's implied immunity, so they don't get to have anything bad happen to them. The facts of Ramirez's case are extremely disturbing. In February of 2017, shortly after Trump unleashed immigration agents to amp up arrests and deportations, ICE agents went to Ramirez's father's house in Seattle to arrest him. The father is undocumented and brought Ramirez to the U.S. illegally as a child. I still take issue with the term illegal. Why do the press fall for that propaganda? While there, they encountered Ramirez and asked him whether he was legally here. He responded that he was, and it was a truthful statement given his DACA status, which he had renewed the previous May. Yet ICE officers detained him anyway, took him to a processing center where, once again, he told them that he had a work permit. It doesn't matter, the agent responded, because you weren't born in this country, you animal. He didn't say the animal, but that's what they're thinking. ICE then interrogated Ramirez, fingerprinted and booked him, confiscated his work permit, sent him to a detention center, and placed him in removal proceedings. It also purported to revoke his DACA status, subjecting him to imminent deportation. Typically, the government may not rescind an individual's DACA status without giving the beneficiary an opportunity to contest its decision. But ICE claimed that Ramirez's DACA benefits could be terminated automatically because he presented an egregious public safety concern due to his alleged gang affiliation. Of course, ICE routinely alleges that Latino immigrants with no indication of gang affiliation are members of a gang in order to detain and deport them because they are animals. They're not human, they're animals. A group of renowned attorneys then stepped in to defend Ramirez, arguing that virtually every action ICE had taken against their client was unlawful. They also alleged that ICE's key claim that Ramirez is gang-affiliated was complete falsehood. One of his lawyers, Mark Rosenbaum, presented evidence indicating that ICE had doctored Ramirez's statement by erasing words he had written in the pencil that they provided and insisted he use no blue or black pen for you, buddy. You get a pencil. And they erased it and made it seem as if he had confessed to being in the gang. The original statement asserts he had no gang affiliation. In fact, the reason they moved to Seattle was to get away from gangs. There was no reason to doubt Ramirez's story and good reason to believe it. If he had been in a gang after all, the government would have already known. To renew his DACA status, Ramirez had to undergo 2 thorough background checks. Neither turned up any evidence of gang affiliation, but hey, they're animals. All of them. You just got to take it in context. Now, ICE continued to pursue the case. He had a tattoo that honored the place that he was born in Baja, California, Sud Baja. But I said, oh no, that's a gang tattoo. That's a gang tattoo. Well, Martinez, who was actually a George W. Bush appointee, said, no, it's not. You guys lied. You erased his interview that you made him write in pencil. So the decision marks the second time in recent weeks that a court has found that immigration agents have made misrepresentations to a court In early May, a New Hampshire judge held that Customs and Border Protection officers had lied about a dragnet it set up in the state, claiming that it was designed to catch undocumented immigrants when it was really meant to catch drug users. Now a federal judge has ruled that ICE essentially slandered a young dreamer to concoct the pretext necessary to deport him. There will be likely no consequences for individual ICE agents, given their broad immunity from lawsuits. But the court, it seems, are starting to catch wise. Trump's immigration forces, much like Trump himself, simply cannot be trusted.
Danser maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Danser maintenant et jeter vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent.
Okay, last article here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life, is by Cody Fenwick out of Alternate. Now, the House Democrats, led by David Nunes, has been repeatedly hammering the DOJ for and the FBI for really privileged information of an ongoing investigation, and has now put an FBI informant's and an FBI agent's life at risk. And is so concerned about the demands that it is actively taking steps to reduce that risk. The stakes are so high, the FBI has been working over the past 2 weeks to mitigate the potential damage if the source's identity is revealed. The Bureau is taking steps to protect other live investigations that the person has worked on and is trying to lessen any danger to associates if the informant's identity becomes known. And nevertheless, Trump tweeted yesterday about reports that there was a spy embedded within the Trump campaign. Now, of course, that's a claim that goes far beyond the publicly known facts, suggesting that he may back his congressional allies' efforts to have the information revealed. The Justice Department continues to push back against the document requests, citing the danger to the source and the ongoing nature of the investigation. Well, sounds very familiar, like when Valerie Plame was outed. And is that what we're coming to again? Yes, the guy's a mobster. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and for the week, but we'll be back here on Monday, of course, for, Mondays. And we'll be back here on Monday to visit with you, but do stay tuned to Netroots Radio the rest of the day, and over the weekend, our live feeds will bring you breaking news as it happens. And we will visit with you on Monday in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. le clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum,